Welcome, this is Mr. Coates. I wanted to discuss with you some of the changes I'm going to make for the new school year. So I want to go over why I changed the way I teach. This picture shows me in the traditional classroom. The traditional classroom basically has the teacher being the center of the room. They're up there lecturing. They are expecting students to pay attention, take notes, and then later on the notes will be applied. Notice students typically aren't very engaged. There aren't a whole lot of hands being raised, not any questions being asked. And so this is actually the worst way that students learn, is through a lecture. So this is the traditional classroom. Usually the lectures are very long. Afterwards, some backup information, worksheets and labs after lecture to reinforce the information. Teacher is the center of the room, as I said before. Only engaged students are asking questions. Everybody else is either asleep or they're texting or they're not paying attention. They're not engaged, whatever they're doing. Okay. Slower students often get left behind. Class is usually in a rush to keep up with the testing schedule, and so the lecture takes up a lot of time. Absent students have a hard time making things up because they have to get notes from fellow students. They aren't there for the original lecture or the original lab, and so they don't get all the information they need. So this is the traditional classroom. The other thing is about a traditional classroom is that at the end there's usually some kind of paper test. This is not the way to ensure that students are actually grasping materials anymore. We're going to kind of get rid of some of these paper tests, and we're going to go more of a skills-based assessment, and I'll go into that in a minute. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go into what we call a flipped classroom. Okay, a flipped classroom is a little bit backwards. Okay. So in this case, there's going to be videos like this one that I've created or that I will assign from other teachers. And these teachers are based in other areas of the world or other areas of the country, and they are just as good, if not better, than I am at teaching the same concepts. So the students will interact with these videos. They'll watch the videos, they'll pause them if they need to stop, they'll rewind them if they need to catch something else back, and they will also be taking notes on the topic in their notebook. Then the next day, when students come into class, okay, students will discuss their notes with me in small groups. They will work on completing worksheets to back up those notes, doing labs, other activities, and so forth. They might be doing some assessments based on their notes with guidance from me, the instructor. Predominant assessments then become skill-based. So, for example, an assessment might be a lab report, or an assessment might be completing a certain math problem, or maybe finding out what is wrong with a certain math problem. That could be an assessment. So assessments are going to be a bit different. They're not going to just be based on straight memorization anymore. So this is what a flipped classroom is. Basically, it takes the lecture out of the classroom and turns that into homework, and then all the other things that were homework come back to be used in the classroom. So why do we do this? First of all, students take on more responsibility for their learning. So why do we do this? First of all, students take more responsibility for their learning. In the past, I have students come up to me and say, "You didn't teach me anything." Well, that's not going to be the case in this instance. Okay? In this case, the students are going to learn topics that I present, but they're not going to learn them the same way. They're going to use a lot of their own skills and a lot of their own effort to learn these things. In this way, also, the teacher can formally assess each student more efficiently and have time to remediate any problems that the students might have. So after they take notes, then I can ask them specific questions about their notes and their lecture, and I can deem whether or not they really understand. If they don't, then I can have them go back and reread a section in the book, or I can have them reread their notes to get more clarification. I also have more time to spend with the students themselves. I won't have to be spending time on lectures. So I can spend time with students as they do activities, as they work on worksheets, as they're getting reinforcement on the material. Also, students can learn at their speed. My classes are going to be what we call asynchronous. This means that one group of students might be working on a lab, another couple students might be working on an online assessment, another couple students might be reading a section in the book, a couple others might be at the board working on a problem. So all the students aren't working on the same thing at the same time. So those students that are a little slower, I can work with them one-on-one and get them caught up. Students also gain a deeper understanding of the material this way. By answering in-depth questions, posing in-depth problems based on the topic, students will know the topics inside and out. Alright, so what does a flipped classroom look like? Basically, students will have a list of objectives to be completed for each unit. There will be a deadline to have this all done so we can have some sort of unit assessment. Won't necessarily be a paper test, but some kind of assessment. Objectives can be completed anytime. So some objectives can be done out of sync. Sometimes you have to take an assessment to go on. So not everybody's going to be doing the same thing in the class at the same time. The objectives can be varied. It could be a worksheet, a lab, a quiz, a reading assignment. Could be all kinds of different things that students do in the class. Class usually will start out by having the teacher get with a small group of students and ask them about their notes from the previous night's lecture or something they might have learned on the previous day. Okay. Other students will be working on other things during this time. They have their list of objectives, so they'll be working on those objectives. And as I get done with the first group of students, I'll go and make another group of students and I'll talk to them about the same type of things. So basically, the students will be working while I'm helping other individual students. Hopefully, every student will be spoken to on a daily basis about what they're learning. So what are the benefits? At this point, learning becomes the focus of the room, not the teacher. Remember, back in the original classroom, the teacher was a lecturer and the teacher was the center of the room. In this case, the learning objective is going to be the center of the room, not the teacher. Students can learn at their own pace. So slower students can, maybe if they have a hard time understanding a math problem or something like that, they can spend more time on that math problem and then get the lab done that they're going to be much quicker at later. And I can help them with their math problem at the same time. Students get meaningful time from the instructor. Okay? Now that I have time away from lecture, I'll have more time to spend with students. Students become self-learners. For example, if they don't understand something, I might have them go and look it up in the book. By reading it in the book or reading it in some kind of periodic journal or something like that, the students can then understand the information a lot better. Students will gain deeper understanding of material overall because of this change. The other good thing is that absent students will have a much easier time staying with the class. If a student is absent, everything they need is going to be online for them. The video lectures will be online, their worksheets will be online, their objective list will be online. The only thing that won't be online is lab work, and lab work can be done when they come back. Students will be assessed various methods. As I mentioned before, it could be a lab write-up, it could be solving a problem or finding out why a problem was solved incorrectly, it could be editing other students' work. So there are going to be multiple different types of assessment. It won't be just a paper test anymore. Now there will be some paper tests, but a majority of the assessment will be away from paper tests now. Now this is all going to be very different for everybody, including myself. I've never taught this way before. I kind of started last year a little bit, but this is going to be totally different, totally new. So there are going to be some growing pains. Okay. Parents and students, you all also have a learning curve, especially students. The first week, 2 weeks, maybe even the first 4 weeks, students are going to be out of sorts with this type of teaching. They are not going to know what to do. So it's going to be a work in progress in class for that first full month, probably, getting students used to this type of teaching. They've probably never had this type of teaching ever in their high school career. So it will be a little bit different. And also the teacher becomes a facilitator in the learning. So I will help them learn, but I'm not going to tell them every single thing. They need to find some of that information on their own. So I will be a facilitator, not a teacher anymore. Now I realize there might be some questions, so you can always send me a message through Edsby, or you can email me at robert.coates@sdhc.k12.fl.us. I do have a phone at school, but I very rarely answer it since it's in a totally different room. So if you need to really speak to me, you can email me or send me a message through Edsby. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to a new and exciting year and exciting way of learning.